What's up, everybody? I recently watched The Thunderbolts and I really liked it. I thought it was the best MCU movie since Endgame, or at least since No Way Home. And I know nowadays people hate that movie because it's considered cameo, Marvel, slop, or whatever, but as a person who really likes the same Raimi movies and tolerates the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, I really appreciated to see all those characters interact, and I appreciated the villains and whatever. I like that movie. But Thunderbolts did something that that movie couldn't, and no movie has done in the past like 3 or 4 years, which is invigorate my interest in this cinematic universe. And especially, I loved Bob and Yelena. For me, those two are now MCU GOATs. Some of the better, or even some of the best characters in the MCU. And Yelena only had what? The Black Widow movie, an episode in the Hawkeye show, and this. And now she's way better than the other Black Widow, the original Black Widow. And Bob is very freaking cool. And I like his acting and everything. Point being, I decided, what if I put him, since he's treated as such a big deal, in a versus battle against someone else. So, right off the bat, Sentry in promotional material as well as in the movie is stated to be stronger than all the Avengers. Now, there is a question mark to which Avengers this is referring to. At the very least, the reference in the movie is happening in the Avengers Tower, which makes you believe, oh, they're talking about the Avengers that were in the events happening in that tower. So the fight with Ultron in the Age of Ultron, and the fight with Loki at the end of the first Avengers movie. So those two rosters are weaker than Sentry. That would include the Hulk or Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, arguably the people from Infinity War and Endgame. But we have further confirmation in outside media, outside of the movie media, that says that Sentry is Captain Marvel, Carol, Vision, and Thor into one. Meaning that those three together are not as strong as him. He's a combination of three of them at the same time. He's stronger than all of them at the same time. Now, Vision is interesting because he is basically an Infinity Stone with an Ultron body, which is pretty impressive. Keep in mind that like one Infinity Stone could destroy a planet, or at least the surface of a planet, so you could imagine that even though this is not a power related stone, it probably compares Sentry's abilities to Vision's stone. Hopefully this is not implying that he has a kidney stone, which is a bad thing if it's too powerful. Thor, on the other hand, is comparable to other gods, like Zeus. And Zeus is the leader of Omnipotent City, so you could argue he's like the strongest there, or at least one of the stronger gods. But where is Jesus though? Like, where is the Christian God? They're never in show. The Christian God is never showing up in those stories. And I understand you could say, well, maybe it's the one above all. Okay, why is the Christian God specifically the one above all? And if it is, they should mention it, okay? Freak you, bro. Freak you. Anyway, where's Jesus though? Is he separate, or is the same person? I don't know how Christianity works. Anyway, Thor also fights Gore, who is supposedly stronger than all those other gods. And I'm bringing this up to say that Kanju from Moon Knight, the god of the moon, can move the moon. And I assume Ra, who's the god of the sun, could move the sun, making Kanju, at the very least, moon level, right? he moves the moon, and Ra about solar system level, because when you move the sun, you move the whole solar system. And Captain Marvel fought Ultron in What If, and to defeat her, he had to blow up like a planet and a whole solar system just to kill her, which shows how strong she is. And then in the Marvels movie, she was able to kind of restore a whole sun, and there are calculations for that put her input of power anywhere from like moon level to like a small star level of energy, which is impressive for Sentry, who's compared with them or superior to them uh, directly through the statements I mentioned earlier. The thing with Sentry, though, is that you could have even crazier arguments for him. For example, Kanju, the god of the moon I mentioned earlier, is actually apparently the god of the night sky as well, because he was able to move in enormous amount of stars in the sky. And I don't know how this works, but at the very least, this would be like a multi-solar system level feat, as those are at least like thousands and thousands of stars that he literally just moved with his own power. And through what I said earlier, Sentry is arguably stronger than him. And something directly related to Sentry is the statement of the fact that he has the power of 1,000 exploding suns. In the comics, I'm pretty sure that's the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, which is obviously way more impressive. But even the power of 1,000 stars exploding is still ginormous. It's still insane. And his powers also come with mind reading abilities and obviously the void, which puts you in a dimension where you relive your own trauma over and over again. And well, maybe if you're very good at, I don't know, mind related abilities stuff, mind control, mind reading, if you're one of those characters, you might be able to fight out of it. Physically speaking, I don't know how you would fight against being transformed into a shadow on the ground. Like, that part seems to be inescapable. Now, to be fair, we haven't seen it done to anybody like extremely powerful, but if we apply the amount of power he has with his, normal abilities of how powerful he is, which is like somewhere between like planet level to 1,000 times a star, if you're not stronger than that, his mind abilities, or at least his void abilities, should work on you pretty easily. If you know me or my channel, you know about what I think of Naruto. There are two types of arguments you could talk about when it comes to Naruto at the end of the series, and in Boruto as well. It's either you believe the characters at the top are situated somewhere between like able to destroy a moon or a planet, maybe a star, or you believe they can destroy universes, which is a more outlandish claim, which I could argue for, but doesn't necessarily mean I believe it, if that makes any sense. But let's look at the claims that are less outlandish, like the fact that he can destroy planets, moons, whatever. So first of all, we have Toneri. Toneri's plan in the Naruto movie was to throw the moon at the Earth with him there and also survive it. His plan requires him to destroy the planet Earth as well as the moon and him survive, which is one. In the same movie, Naruto attacks Toneri. Toneri attacks Naruto with an attack that splits the moon in half, and Naruto gets some damage from it, but not enough to put him down. There's Kinshiki, another Otsutsuki member like Toneri, who is stated to be able to cut planets in half or split the world with his attacks. The Ten-Tails, which is a portion of Kaguya who Naruto and Sasuke fight, is also comparable in size to the planet itself in terms of chakra, and chakra in Naruto is essentially power. With the power of the Ten-Tails and of the planet itself, Kaguya can essentially destroy planets herself. Planets or dimensions, depending on how you look at it. At the very least, she can destroy planets, but if you think she can destroy the entirety of her dimensions, and some of those dimensions have moons or stars in them, you could argue that Kaguya is essentially a destroyer of planets, if not solar systems or something. And even Kurama or Naruto, when he has the power of Kurama, are stated to be able to turn the world to ash or destroy it or whatever, which could mean, the surface of the planet or the planet itself, depending on your mileage on it. And even in Boruto right now, we have some planet level stuff going on. So I think it's pretty easy to argue that characters in Naruto are at the very least like planet level or in that range of power, if not able to destroy solar systems. So at the end of the day, I think it's fair to assume that they're not too far apart at base. At base, you could argue that both Sentry or Naruto or other Naruto characters are like planet level. That's like easy to argue, how Thor with the Stormbreaker could overpower Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. The Power Stone from the Infinity Gauntlet alone can like destroy the surface of the planet or a planet. And again, he was able to overpower it. And then Gore fights him. And then Century is stronger than Gore or Thor or Zeus and Thanos and all these people. And everything that I said earlier. But at most, you could say that he has the power of 1,000 stars, which is obviously more than the power of like one solar system that Kaguya supposedly could destroy. If you take her argument of being able to destroy a dimension that has a star in it at face value, and you say she has the power to destroy a solar system, and then compare it to someone like Century, who's stronger than Carol, who can start a whole star and is strong enough to be comparable to 1,000 stars, that would make him, well, essentially 1,000 times stronger than Kaguya, right? Who was one of the stronger characters in the show. It would make him 1,000 times stronger than most characters. The only characters you could argue are stronger than him are some characters in Boruto, but we're talking about Naruto here. I just use Boruto as evidence of the planet level stuff, I'm not necessarily talking about characters from Boruto, especially the ones that happened in part 2 of Boruto, which hasn't ended yet, so I'm not gonna give a conclusion on those yet. One of the more interesting arguments about this is how would Century be able to handle Genjutsu, for example? Like, yeah, Naruto would be trapped in the, void, and arguably Kurama can't wake him up because it's something mental as well as physical. So him and Kurama would probably just be there stuck in a infinite loop. But what if someone like Sasuke, who is one of the stronger of the series, or someone like Kaguya, who's also one of the stronger characters of the series, just tries to fight it with their own mental capabilities? Well, in that case, I would still give it to Century. I would still give it to the Void, arguing that the Void comes out. Let's say Century fights Kaguya or Naruto and Sasuke or whatever, and they've driven him to a point where he needs to, bring in the Void. Let's say the Void is brought up. Let's say Sasuke tries to put Century or Bob in a Genjutsu and messes him up, well, then the void comes out, and the void literally transforms you into a void, literally makes you a shadow on the ground. That's physical. That's not just mental. That's something that happens to you, and something that I don't think anybody in Naruto has really a counter to outside of maybe Obito. You could argue he can phase through it or something, but that's about it. The strong characters that matter could not really avoid it. And most characters in Naruto that have mental capabilities, they have to use also their physicality to disturb people's chakra in order to do their mind control shenanigans. But here, their bodies are transformed to a void and their minds are sent to a weird pocket dimension. So I don't even know if that's possible. The one character here who I think might be able to defeat him is Kakashi, because Kakashi is basically immune. And I'm talking about dual Mangekyo Sharingan Kakashi, because he's strong enough and fast enough to fight with Kaguya and stuff, so he's one of the strongest in the show. But also, he is intangible, so arguably the void powers things would just go through him if he wants to. But if the void just spreads the void around the planet, eventually even Kakashi will be defeated, because keep in mind, Kakashi can only be intangible for like 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the time limit on his eyes, on his ability. So eventually, even he will become tangible, and the void would engulf him. So I think it's easy to argue that not only is Sentry arguably way stronger than characters in Naruto, but the void has an ability that I don't see anybody countering. The only way I see him losing is if someone just kicks a true-seeking orb and throws it at her. Sorry. The only way I see him losing is if Naruto or Kaguya just throw a true-seeking orb at him, and that disintegrates him somehow, and he freaking dies. That's the only way I see it.